So there's this fascinating relationship going on between anxiety and worry. And I wanted to discuss that with you today. It's like this honeymoon. So, as you know, that worry is a cognitive process, and it's commonly known as the what if scenarios, right? It's this verbal thinking, verbal self talk, and you're constantly asking questions about a threat related issue or problem, although it doesn't have to be verbal. I've seen studies or statistics where it's verbal 2/3 of the time. I know firsthand from my experience, it's not verbal. But let's just go with it, right? Most of the time, it happens to be verbal thinking. And anxiety, on the other hand, is a system-wide state of hyperarousal, right? You've got, uh, there's a number of different systems going on here at play with anxiety. So it's much broader than worry, right? So it can manifest as physical distress, if you've experienced that before. There's also subconscious hypervigilance, right? You don't go around saying, well, I'm going to be vigilant today with literally everything. It's just you are hypervigilant. You're constantly scanning for threats. And more than likely, things that are neutral or normal are seen as threats or avoidance behaviors. And a lot of the time, these behaviors you're not even conscious you're doing it until you think about it. But you're behaving in ways, the anxiety is making you behave in ways that you may not be even aware of, right? You're avoiding certain things, reassurance seeking. There's a number of different things there. And those do not require any type of verbal thoughts or conscious mental rehearsal to do, right? So you could just be anxious and you have these things going on, these components of anxiety, and you're just not thinking about it, but it's happening. All right, so there's a few different parts I wanted to discuss. 4 parts. The first part is anxiety can exist without worry. And of course, it does. Anxiety can exist without you ever worrying. And while they occur often together, they're not the same thing, right? We've said that worry is the cognitive process and anxiety is the broader state that involves these components. There's 4 components, the others, but primarily the emotional, the physiological, attentional, and behavioral components, right? Just real quickly, the emotional component is the feeling of anxiety, right? This tightness in the chest. However, you might feel this anxious feeling with your muscles, with your body. Then there's the physiological component, which is things like your heart racing, which is sweating, restlessness, sleep issues. Then there's the attentional component, which I've been talking about attention for months. The attention system is a fascinating area of science, and anxiety affects your attentional system, what you pay attention to, and how you interpret it, and how your attention can narrow depending on what's happening, right? And then finally, behavioral responses. We said those could be like reassurance seeking, like avoidance, like escape, so on. So these things often do happen without you actively worrying, having worried thoughts, these repetitive verbal thoughts of what if scenarios, what if this happens? What do I do? How do I deal with that? This is going to be a problem. You can feel anxious without having any of these thoughts. Okay, so part 2, worry can exist without much anxiety. Absolutely, it can. So you can worry without experiencing a strong state of anxiety. Because remember, worry is a future-oriented mental process, and it can occur without significant emotional feelings, such as those in anxiety, or the physiological arousal. So people in everyday life they are often engaged in repetitive thinking about possible future problems. It's a normal thing, and they don't feel intensely anxious. But in clinical anxiety, worry is typically driven by perceived threat and uncertainty. So it becomes persistent, and it's difficult to control, and it's more likely to maintain or worsen an anxious state. So while anxiety often gives rise to worry, worry itself does not require a strong experience of anxiety. Next, anxiety can trigger worry. So although worry can begin before anxiety is consciously experienced, right? We said you can worry about anything right now and you don't feel anxiety. But anxiety can also become the starting point for worry. So when a person experiences like these unexplained emotional or physiological changes, these experiences can become the focus of your cognitive appraisal, right? So you're appraising it. What does this mean? I've got this feeling. It doesn't feel good in my stomach, my chest. I feel bad. There must be something. It must be a sign, right? It's giving me a sign of something bad that can happen. Dealing with a person, a place, or a thing. So that's how the anxiety can trigger worry. So you'll try to interpret what the anxiety means, why it's happening, or whether it signals a problem. And these interpretations can trigger threat-related thoughts that develop into worry. So in this state, the sequence is different, right? The anxious state comes first, and the mind begins trying to understand or explain it, and the anxiety becomes the trigger for more threat-related thinking. So next, worry can trigger anxiety. So this is worry moving in the opposite direction and contributing to anxiety. So, and by the way, I want to just backtrack for a moment here. It's not just the feeling of anxiety triggering worry is not the primary method for how worry is triggered within us. It's through this threat appraisal, right? It's when a threat appraisal becomes conscious in our mind that we may worry about it, right? So we're picking up on things unconsciously all the time, and we're reacting to it. But sometimes the threat appraisal, such as this person is trouble or this place is dangerous, they become conscious. And if we sit there and just think about it and repeat it and work with that, it turns into worry, right? Like, why is this place dangerous? What does that mean? How's this going to affect me? And you just get into it. So when you repeatedly think through possible future threats, or you imagine negative outcomes, and you mentally rehearse what could go wrong, those thoughts can strengthen threat appraisals and maintain attention on potential danger. So this process continues, the body begins responding to the perceived threat. And you're going to have these physiological changes, the emotion, muscle tension, heart rate increase, breathing changes. So at this point, you're no longer just engaged in the worry, the thinking. Your worry has contributed to an anxious state. So you've seen how this sequence goes either way. If you found our talk today useful, please like and subscribe, share this with a friend, and check out the membership. I highly recommend you join the membership. There is an attention training program that helps you deal with anxiety. Take care.